Well, it's official. I'm idol trash now. Aikatsu is a show I like much more than I should. It's about idols. They're girls. They go to a school that's trying to make them better idols. It's made to sell trading cards to little girls, trading cards with fictional clothes that they can't wear. And I like it. Like, not even ironically. Like, I don't even know what ironic enjoyment is, and I'm too afraid to ask. But it is aimed at children, and I think that actually works in its favor, because an aspect to idols is they're supposed to be pure, and since it's a children's show, there's just that purity about it. Like, it's never very dramatic. It tends to be over the top. Like, in one of the earlier episodes, the main character needs to go see a fashion designer who makes the outfits, some of the outfits that are worn. There's a bunch of different fashion brands, and she thinks the elevator's out of service because it's on she lives on this mountain, the fashion designer. So she has to go the old way, and the old way was scaling a 200-foot cliff with her bare hands, and she just does it in like a montage. Like this middle school girl just free climbs this fucking 200-foot tall mountain, and just like less than a minute of screen time, and it's just like, wait, what is this happening? And that's not even the most over-the-top thing that happens in the show. So it's definitely very fun, and it's not amazingly produced. Like, there's little moments where they'll have like a really, like, it'll be animated really well, but there's just these like small things, and I noticed, but mostly it's more limited, I'd say. It's very bright colors, and the characters are adorable, and the soundtrack, the idol music, it sticks in your head, but at the same time, I can't say if that's necessarily because it's great music, or if simply because I watched about an episode a day for more than a month, and anything will stick in your head if you watch that much. Because that's the thing, I'm only 50 episodes in, and there's 120 episodes to go of the show. Though I'm putting it off for now, I just felt like talking about it, which is why I'm doing another rambling review. It's now a series. But it's strange that I enjoy the show so much, because the characters are simple. Like, they have a lot of good interactions, but on their own, there's generally not much to say. Like, none of them are bad, but, the main character, she's adorable and energetic, and kind of ditzy and dumb, not clumsy. Well, she has her brief moments. And then she's got a friend who she's smart. She likes idols, so she's like an encyclopedia of idols, and she's kind of cool. And then there's another friend who's also cool, but she's a bit more mature. And then like there's a whole expanded side cast of characters who each of them have their like idea of, because idols, they act, they sing, they dance, they, have a stage presence, and so all the characters sort of have their own, aspect to them, except the main character, which is part of her conflict in like the last 2 episodes of season 1. But yeah, each of the characters does feel distinct from each other, and this is also gotten across with the fashion designers I mentioned, because, several of the designers are recurring characters, like only like 1 or 2 episodes, I think. The one attached to the main character shows up maybe 3 or 4 times. Some of them only show up once. But each of the characters has their own distinct style. Like, Ron her brand is Spicy Ahega, which is sort of like a Spanish flamenco kind of inspired deal. With lots of like purples and pinks and the sort of just that kind of wavy color, while the main character, I forget what it's called, but, pink, it almost feels like this sort of like standard idol with just the pinks and that kind of stuff. But yeah, the show isn't amazing in any one aspect. Like, the writing is kind of weak sometimes. Like, there'll be episodes where it's like, oh, that happened, and it's, like, they'll try for a theme, and it's fine. Sometimes they'll stumble a bit, and and then I end up like one episode that I thought was interesting, but sort of had a dissatisfying resolution, was one where there's a side character, the groundskeeper at the school, and he's in a music band, and he has a fallout with his one of his band members because they got popular doing the music they want to do, but now the groundskeeper wants to do music that'll make them more popular. And so there's this conflict about, integrity versus getting popular, or, doing following trends. And it just kind of ends like the main character's like, oh, I'll do come to my concert, and then she does a concert and all her fans are happy, and then they just decide to get the band back together because breaking it up would make the fans less happy. And I was just like, oh, okay, like, they didn't really answer the question, but it was still an interesting episode. strangely. And one area where it seemed like it might have been wanting to go for it first was like when Ron's first introduced, she sees Ichigo and Aoi and the two first introduced characters, and she's like, "Oh, you're friends now, but the idol world is tough. You'll end up, betraying each other." But that never ever comes up in the story. Like, she becomes their friend, and there's even competitions and stuff. But at no point, like, yeah, they're all rivals, but there's whenever there's a loser, the loser's always smiling. And the one time it was at the worst was when they introduced Otome, another character, and she's up against Ichigo, and then she loses. But then after that, they're like, "Oh, this showing was so good this year that we're gonna have a losers bracket, and the one loser can come back and go with the others." And then, of course, Otome wins in the next episode, so she still ends up in the next part of the tournament, and I was a little disappointed. And yeah, the first two episodes were good, and then it starts to go a little down, but then once it hits the 20s, it starts picking up. Because they force concerts, and when they're not needed, like some episodes, they're like, the whole episode goes on, at the end, it's like, "Oh, we need a concert scene, let's have a concert scene." And the concerts themselves are in CG, which at first, I was like, because I just like 2D animation better. But then, later on, they sort of found the show really finds its footing later on. And with the CG concerts in particular, like, they do reuse them. Like, I don't think a single song or a dance choreography gets used only once. There's several, but still. But what I think made the CG work was actually the outfits, because a lot of the early outfits were fairly simple, but later on they get really elaborate to the point where I don't think the amount of effort it would take to animate them in 2D dancing would be ridiculous. And some of the outfits do look good, but so yeah, if the song was good, I was down for the concert. So regardless of the CG, it grew on me, so to speak. But I'm also not one who's super adverse to CG in the first place. Like, a lot of people were like, "Oh, Inuyashiki, the CG looks bad," but I was like, it's fine. But I also wasn't super invested in Inuyashiki, so probably not the best example. So at this point, I really haven't mentioned a lot of good. Like, the good aspects are fine, and then there's some weak aspects sort of holding it back a bit. But there is one area where I think the show really gets to me, because, like, a lot of it is simple, and it is simple in its appeal. Cute girls, idols, purity. But I think the real specific way I found the show interesting even is because I mentioned earlier that it's 178 episodes long. There aren't a lot of shows these days that get that long. And even then, like, the slice of life shows, you have like I'm trying to think of what are the longest ones. You have like Hidamari Sketch, which is like 50, 60 episodes maybe. Natsume Yujincho is like probably 70 episodes by now or so. Still quite a ways off from 178. And the shows that are that long are action series, like Shonen, your Shonen stuff, your One Pieces, and then maybe there's some old stuff like Detective Conan that's lasted, or your Sazai-san, which is also slice of life. But then when you get to those, like Sazai-san, or even to use Western examples like The Simpsons, or where the time doesn't pass. They're slice of life, but they're in a constant state, while a slice of life show, like Hidamari Sketch, will have continuity, but it's also not nearly as long. And then the shows that are really long are usually goal driven, like One Piece or Bleach, or I guess Black Clover's going right now. Hunter x Hunter's 148 episodes long. So or at least what at first I found kind of unique about Aikatsu is that it's a long-form slice of life story, but in doing so, like, it actually uses shonen tropes. The main character Ichigo, at times, she's said, like, oh, she has this aspect to her where she gathers others around her, and she supports them and they support her. And the way it was put was almost exactly like in Naruto, when Chiyo, during the Kazekage rescue arc, Chiyo says, "Oh, Naruto has this ability to gather others around him." And in the Paramount War arc of One Piece, Mihawk says about Luffy that basically the same thing. So she's a shonen protagonist, except she's a cute girl in an idol show. And one of the early episodes drives home the idea of hard work with the best idol at the school. They sneak around and see her practicing like out into the middle of the night, and so it's a slice of life with a dash of shonen. And the fact that it's a long-term story also just added to it, because like in episode 2 we find out, well, I guess it's a spoiler, but by the time the secret's actually revealed in episode like 47 to the main character, it's like you have to be 5 to not have noticed it, so I don't feel bad about spoiling it. So in episode 2, the main character's mother turned out was in an idol group that broke up a while back. And there was only 2 members, and we're told that one of the members, the identity of the other one, who's the headmistress of the school, the idol school, but we're not told that it's only the only hints that at that point the only hint that Ichigo's mom was in that duo is her hair and eye color. And because I actually went back, when they were saying that this other idol left the idol scene and was never seen, no one knows who she is or where she is. And I was like, the way this is being introduced, this probably comes back later. And I was trying to think of but how many other adult female characters? And then I checked earlier in the episode when Ichigo's mom was there, and I noticed that they share that same hair and eye color. And I was like, I was actually like, oh my god, I stumbled upon an arcane secret. But of course, much later in the show, there's more hints dropped, some much more blatant than others, but I think what kept me, felt like maybe it should bother me, because it's it takes so long for it to actually get revealed. But the thing is that it's really minor. Even when it is revealed, the main character's like, oh, cool, I didn't know my mom was an idol. And, there's some fun scenes that come out of it, but since it's a slice of life show, it's not, hugely important whether or not the secret gets revealed. So, as I'm watching along, I as an audience member, I feel like I'm in on the secret when the main character isn't. And it's done in a way that I feel like if this was, say, Naruto, if there was, say, a masked character whose identity is super obvious and super important to the story, but the story acted like the audience shouldn't know, if that's something like that happened, I might be frustrated. But in this show, it worked because it's not important. Another aspect of the long-form storytelling is that there's a lot of characters, so, sometimes they'll just bet an episode on one of the side characters, or one of the supporting characters, and it'll be cool. Or Ron in particular is the only one to really get an arc out of the 50 episodes, because she starts out, sort of not too enthused about friendship, but then it turns out that friendship is sort of what she needs to be a good idol, and it was pretty interesting how that turned out. Or how that panned out. It was pretty interesting how that panned out. But one moment in particular that I found really interesting was in episode 26 or so. The main character does a commercial. She with the and the commercial director is named, and he's a minor character in that episode. Then a couple dozen or so episodes later, in episode 40 no, that's not even a couple dozen. There's one of the less important characters in Idol, or an actress. She's trying to expand her horizons. She normally does these cool characters, but now she wants to try and do cute characters. And what happens is, so while she's trying to expand her horizons, she takes an audition for a movie that the director of that commercial is doing. So it's this really small connection. You don't need to, the fact that, he calls in a favor with the main character because they know each other. But I thought it was interesting because the director was going from commercial directing to film direction. So he too is expanding his horizons. So it's this really small connection that also fit the episode thematically. And again, because you don't get shows this long, that you can't really do that in, say, a 13 episode show, because the fact that this small character was getting reused would sort of give him more importance. But because it's such a large, because it's 50 episodes and he only shows up in 2 of them, he's still a very minor character. But you still have this really cool detail from this really minor character. And it's, that intertextuality is satisfying. And I think that's part of why I like the show a lot, because I like slice of life. Because I also like shonen and long stories. So here you have something that's doing both. So I guess as a review, do I recommend it? It's long, and it starts out, the first few episodes are good, and then after that it's not so good. It's still good, but it's not as good, and then it really hits its stride around episode 20 something or so. And I still enjoyed it much of the way through. The only times I was really was when you had those repeated concerts. There was one song in particular I didn't like, so when that song got a concert for the 3rd episode in a row, I was just please, no. God, no. But, you know, a lot of songs I do like, especially when they use the openings or endings as a concert. Like, that's a cool thing that idol shows can do. That, you'll have the opening playing at the end of the episode. Like, in episode 50, they had the first ending theme play, and it was really good. I like that trope normally with the opening theme. But, because it's an idol show, they can actually have it, diegetically, which is really cute. But the reason I give it a light recommendation because for me, it's a specific kind of appeal. So if you like, you know, slice of life shows, if you like long series, and if you like shonen, then maybe give it. But the other reason I give it a light recommendation is because it's not unique, or rather, I don't know how unique it is, because there exist two other shows, Prepara and Pretty Rhythm, which are also both long idol shows, presumably aimed at young girls, and I don't know what they do different. Like, maybe one of them is better. There's also the currently ongoing Aikatsu Stars and Idle Time Prepara, and maybe Pretty Rhythm has an ongoing season. So, like, they're all still continuously going. But that's the thing, is that it'll take so long for me to actually check these other shows, because Aikatsu's 178 episodes, Aikatsu Stars is 80 episodes and counting, Prepara is 140 episodes, Idle Time Prepara is 40 episodes and counting. There's 3 seasons of Pretty Rhythm that are 50 episodes each. So this is like, I'm 50 episodes in, so I think that covers about an 11th of all these shows. I think there's an insane amount of episodes to this, so it's good that I enjoy it, because there's so much more. So yeah, that's just a little thought dump. I kind of wanted to talk about the show because I thought it was interesting, but not interesting enough for a video, like an uncovering. Maybe it will. Maybe I'll have enough more to say when I actually finish the show. Because another aspect to Aikatsu is the main character. Like, at the end of episode 50, the main character sort of leaves, and so I guess the next episode's going to either focus on the side cast more without the main character, which is interesting, or the new main character will be introduced. So now you've got this almost this JoJo's Bizarre Adventure-esque, like not outright like huge time skips, but just the idea of changing protagonists partway through, and another aspect to long-form story. And that one in particular, you don't get a lot. Like, I'm trying to think of other examples of shows that just outright change the protagonist like that across, like, after the main character story is done, they just do another main character. And JoJo's the only one I can think that does that. And even then with Aikatsu, I don't. Maybe Ichigo will come back, so who knows. So yeah, I got way more of the show to go. I hope I enjoy it. And if it sounds like your thing, like, again, the way I watched it was, if you watched my, breaking down my anime 3x3 video, I talk about how, for like 4 years, I watched slice of life shows an episode a night. And I started doing that again. Like, part of the reason I'm putting it on hold is because I wanted to watch another show. But yeah, I just sort of used it as like a palate cleanser. One episode a night, I'd just sit back and watch this simple idol show made to sell small Japanese girls trading cards. And then turned out to be pretty good.